Earlier this year, the news shook the world. We are in a global pandemic. I remember the toilet paper chaos, the hurry to buy food, and the realization that I was going to be in the close vicinity of my younger sister for several months. I remember school systems first setting up their online school platforms, events getting canceled left and right, and how could I forget the fear and shock that spread throughout our communities. You probably have heard an overwhelming number of COVID-19 statistics in this past few months, but I'm not here to once again warn you guys to wash your hands and stay safe for the 100th time. Instead, there's something that you most likely have missed, something you've overlooked as you've been questioning when the pandemic was going to end or when a cure would be available. Let's first look at a few of these significant dates. 2002, severe acute respiratory syndrome. 2003, one of the worst years for the West Nile outbreak. 2014, the Ebola outbreak. 2015, the Zika virus outbreak. And of course, 2020, COVID-19. I can name so many more, but you get the point. Recently, we've experienced numerous outbreaks as a global community. In the midst of these outbreaks, we strive to find a cure, to protect the people, and to eventually eradicate the disease. It's almost like a cycle. Every time a new disease pops up, we have these same goals and same ideas in mind. But there's something different here, compared to measles or compared to polio. And that is all of these diseases I just mentioned have originated from animals. They're all something called zoonotic diseases. SARS was transmitted by horseshoe bats. Both the Zika virus and the West Nile virus are mosquito-borne diseases. Ebola is likely from bats or non-human primates, and the coronavirus is also likely to have been transmitted by bats. In 2016, the United Nations Environmental Program declared zoonosis as a global issue after studies have shown that new infectious diseases are occurring among humans at an average of 3 times per year. But why are zoonotic diseases occurring more frequently? The answer is that COVID-19 is more than just a human health crisis. It's actually a symptom of human activity. Several months ago, I was honored to have the United Nations Environmental Program Director, Ingrid Anderson, speak to me in detail about the deep-rooted causes of some of our world's most pressing environmental and health concerns. To do so, she split these concerns into 3 main categories: the climate crisis, the ecosystems crisis, and the health crisis. These 3 categories, though may first appear to you as widely different, are all interrelated. Take COVID-19, for example. It's most obviously a health crisis. It's a respiratory disease that spreads among people. In total, there has even been over 1 million deaths due to this virus. But here's where it's also related to the ecosystems crisis. Since the genesis of animal domestication, we have greatly maximized our interactions with the animal world. Our human population has had higher demands for dairy and meat products, and livestock farming has also increased in popularity. We have bridged together the animal world and the human population so that we're facilitating the transfer of viruses and pathogens from animals to humans, causing zoonotic diseases. Disturbances in ecosystems can be dangerous to both organisms living in the ecosystem and those living outside of it. Let's look at an example of monoculture, the practice of growing the same crop species year after year. In 2012, a study confirmed that pathogens are more likely to build resistance in fields growing the same crop. The lack of biodiversity in monoculture thus increases the likelihood of disease. William Wetzel, an assistant professor at the Michigan State University, said that monoculture is like an all-you-can-eat buffet for plant-eating insects, where every dish is delicious. He also said that a variable crop is like a buffet where every other dish is nasty. Monoculture provides a perfect condition for pathogens to access an abundance of resources for their survival, while a more diverse mixture of plants reduces this risk of pathogen survival. Similarly, in large ecosystems around the world, the lack of biodiversity introduces the risk of infectious diseases. Researchers from a study conducted by Felicia Keesing a biologist at the Bard College, observed that infectious diseases such as Lyme disease and the West Nile virus became more prevalent as biodiversity declined. Scientists call this the dilution effect, which states that it's more difficult for a pathogen to spread rapidly in a more biodiverse ecosystem. In simpler terms, more ecosystem biodiversity means fewer diseases carried on to humans. And third, here is how COVID-19 and other zoonoses are related to the climate crisis. Burning fossil fuels and other causes of climate change can impact the survival of microbes due to changes in temperature and humidity. Vectors for diseases, such as mosquitoes, in the optimal situation of high temperatures increase in population size. As a result, we see vector-borne diseases such as the West Nile virus and the Zika virus. And now here's how all three of these categories that I just mentioned are all interrelated. Climate change has global implications on the distribution of species in our ecosystems. Species that are unable to adapt to environmental changes caused by our changing climate not only risk extinction, but they can also severely impact other organisms that they interact with. And this is all because of this interdependence between organisms in our ecosystems. And of course, an unhealthy and disturbed ecosystem creates conditions where pathogens can thrive. Unfortunately, in the path that we are headed, we can expect numerous more zoonotic diseases to emerge. In fact, according to the CDC, 75% of emerging diseases in humans are predicted to be zoonotic ones. Biodiversity is on the decline, global warming is on the rise, and human interactions with the environment are rapidly increasing. The coronavirus shines light on how deeply interrelated human health is to environmental health, but it also introduces to us the potential we have to protect our climate and to protect our ecosystems. Over the first 4 months since the pandemic hit the United States, our Earth has experienced a significant global reduction in carbon dioxide emissions. In fact, in April, global emissions decreased by 17% daily, and emissions in individual countries decreased on an average of 26%. Even such a short period of time with stay-home regulations can drastically put a halt to the growing amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. However, I'm not trying to say that a global pandemic is the answer to solving all of our environmental issues, but instead it's important to point out that COVID-19 has brought to us an image of what changes we are capable of to protect the planet. Now let's talk a bit about ourselves. It may surprise you to learn how significant humans are to the causes of these outbreaks. In fact, in every day of our lives, we're interacting with the environment and contributing to these crises in some way. For example, when you're washing your clothes in the washing machine, you are shedding microplastics from your clothes that enter our oceans and disturb marine ecosystems. Your blue jeans shed about 50,000 microplastics per wash on average. Or how about your skincare routine? Your face wash and other cosmetic products may contain microbeads that also enter our oceans and disturb marine ecosystems. Driving your gas-powered car to work or school, that's burning fossil fuels. Or shopping online, which results in high greenhouse gas emissions from the package waste to the delivery process. It's likely that many of these actions are more difficult to change than others. But regardless of what you want to change in your lifestyle to be more environmentally friendly, the most imperative first step you can do takes place in your mind. Understand these interactions you have with the environment and learn the environmental impacts of your daily actions. We know that humans are the main cause of so many environmental issues we face today, but what we do to cause these issues is often overlooked, unnoticed, because they're just habits in our everyday lives. It won't be easy for everyone to, for example, switch to a more environmentally friendly source of coffee, or to stop driving gas-powered cars, or even to stop shopping online. It won't be easy to reverse the habits we've lived with for so many years. I personally can attest that I do many of these activities I just mentioned. But one thing I do, instead of just acknowledging these actions, is that I'm actively aware of what I do. I know the harm that overwashing clothes can cause to our environment, and this awareness motivates me and limits me from washing too often. I know the harm of leaving lights on without use, and this awareness motivates me to turn off lights whenever possible. You don't need to spend hours completely trying to terminate all your interactions with the environment because that's near impossible. But you can reduce the harmful interactions significantly by just starting to acknowledge them. You don't need to be an expert on these issues, but subconsciously, you'll realize that your understanding of these harmful interactions guides you to make better decisions. One way I found the most helpful to dive deeper into these environmental issues was to start my own personal blog, Let's Talk Earth. Whenever I'm introduced to a foreign topic, I get myself to start writing a blog post on it, as if I were educating someone else about it. I do my research beforehand, of course, but I'm still no expert. Instead, I use that blogging opportunity not only to enlighten others to these new ideas, but also to further my own understanding of these topics. I strongly believe that you are able to understand a subject better when you can teach it, and that's exactly what I've tried to do with my blog. But don't get me wrong, there's so much more you can do than just educating yourself. And that's where you can start getting involved with individuals and organizations that work towards the common goal of protecting our planet. And it's never too late to start changing the world. Because our environmental concerns are so wide in range, there isn't one right way to be an environmental activist. One characteristic I write about all the time in my environmental blog is to stay intellectually curious. Stay curious to learn more about our interactions with the world. Look deeper into your everyday actions. This way, huge environmental consequences, such as COVID-19, can be thought of as more than just a health crisis. And this way, we can protect our planet and protect our people. And of course, this way, we can all be full-time environmental activists. We can't ask nature to give us a few more years like we ask our teachers to extend the deadline to our homework. But the more you know, the more you can do. You don't need to be an expert. I'm not an expert. But looking past the surface of everyday events can always enlighten you to something you don't know. Thank you.